Hello and welcome to this class. Today I am going to discuss a poem by W. Yeats. The title of the poem is The Second Coming. W. Yeats was an Irish poet and a very renowned poet of the 20th century English literature. He was an Irish by birth and spent a lot of time in London, but he was thoroughly an Irish nationalist. And this poem has been written by him to depict the picture of despair prevalent in the second decade of the previous century. This poem was written in 1919 and published in 1920. The atmosphere of Europe was very disturbing at the time of the composition of this poem. The World War had brought a great devastation and calamity all over the world, especially in Europe. And the world had seen the violent Russian Revolution also of the 1917. And on the Irish front also, it was the beginning of the Irish freedom struggle and the British government's repression of the Irish nationalists with brutal force. All these historical context went into framing his mental condition when he was writing that poem, The Second Coming. Let us read the poem first. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, the blood dimmed tide is used, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming, hardly these words out, when a vast image of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight, somewhere in sands of the desert. A shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun, is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, it's our own, come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. And I read the second and the last two lines once again. And what rough beast, it's our come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. The title, The Second Coming, alludes to the Christian belief of the second coming of Christ, as is believed by the Christian devotees that Christ would come again and reward the faithful and bring all the devotees of God to peace and happiness. But apart from this similarity of a biblical allusion to Christ, there is no much similarity in this second coming with the coming or the second coming of Jesus Christ. The second coming that is described in this poem is not biblical, is not Christian, but it is something that is very rough and that is very vicious. This poem has been divided into two stanzas, and in the first stanza the poet presents the picture of his time in a very disturbing and troubling way. He presents the picture of the world as if something has gone out of control, as if the whole world has become mad, and the image of the falconer not being able to control the falcon. The falcon has rose higher in the sky and it is flying in a widening circular movement, and that circle is ever widening. It does not listen to the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. The poet wants to say that this whole world has become chaotic. There is no order, there is no rule of law, there is no faith, there is no belief left, there is nothing for the believers. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The world is full of anarchy, there is no order, there is no peace, there is no rule of law. The blood-dimmed tide is used, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The poet presents a very dim picture of the 20th century or the second decade of the 20th century, when the World War of 1914 to 1919 had brought upon a great devastation all over the world. And he says, it is the tide of blood-dimmed flow that is everywhere to be seen in this world, and in that blood-dimmed tide, innocence has been drowned. There is no hope for the innocents. The guilty are thriving and the innocent are doomed. The final two lines of the first stanza sums up the condition. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. The best people, the people who are faithful, the people who are honest, the people who want order in the world, wants justice in the world, those who want peace and happiness in the world, they don't know what to do. They have no faith left. They have no place to go to. Their pillars of hope have been broken. But on the other hand, those who are the wicked people, those who are the worst people, they are full of intensity, they are very passionate, they are thriving. In these 8 lines of the first stanza, the poet presents a very dark and dim picture of the times in which he was living. And in the second stanza, he is talking about the future from his point of view, and the future, as is revealed in the second stanza, is even darker. He says some revelation is at hand. The second coming is about to arrive, but this second coming is not the second coming that is discussed in the Bible. It is not the second coming of the Holy Jesus. It is not the second coming that will bring solace and comfort to the world, but it is a demonic second coming of a beastly creature, and the poet refers to the vast image of Spiritus Mundi. He presents the picture of a sphinx, of a creature with a lion body and the head of a man, and he sees that this creature is coming to life in some distant desert, and he presents a very pitiless and wicked picture of that desert. The eye of that beast is blank and pitiless. It is as pitiless as the sun in the sandy desert. And this beast is moving slowly, and all about it are the birds of the desert, and those birds are indignantly flying in the sky, and their shadows are falling on the sand. But the wicked beast is careless about them, about the plight of those indignant birds. And the poet says that after 20 centuries of sleep, this creature has come to a nightmarish awareness or waking up. He says after the birth of Christ, this wicked creature had gone to sleep, but after 20 centuries of sleep, this wicked creature has come back to life and has brought a nightmare to this world. And he says that the rough beast is slouching towards Bethlehem, and he ends the last sentence with a question mark, and this question mark suggests that instead of the rebirth of Christ or resurrection of Christ or the coming or second coming of Christ, it is something very deadly and dangerous that is coming over to the world. And something about the rhyme scheme of the poem: many lines are written in iambic pentameter, but the pattern has not been followed strictly, and there were some lines where this pattern is not followed, and it is similar to blank verse in those places. And this poem is one of the famous modernist poems of W. Yeats. This is a very representative poem of the modernist poetry of W. Yeats. Thank you.